Hey, NIO fam, happy Tuesday to you. It is a little afternoon Central Time as I record this, and we've got a lot to talk about. So let me just jump right in. The first thing is this. I've got the insurance registration playlist pulled up. I have done 130, well, more now, including this video, 130 videos covering this weekly insurance registration data. And here's the first thing I'm going to ask everyone in the community. When you see any content creator out there posting and saying deliveries and not correctly saying these are insurance registrations, please correct them. And there's a reason. I believe that the insurance registration numbers are lagging the actual deliveries. And you say, well, how is that possible? Well, I think that there are two ways we can kind of tell. One is just simple logic. If people are taking physical delivery but don't get their insurance put in place, if the government agency is not open over the weekend, and they just wait until later in the month, well, it kind of makes sense that the actual delivery numbers could be much bigger than what we're seeing. So this is only the insurance registration data. It doesn't even come from NIO. So why do I cover it? Well, two reasons. I want to have indicators, like when I talked about this month in August, which I do think we have a shot at seeing a new delivery record. We can pull up this data that I tracked back in December of 2024. That was the monthly delivery record of over 30,000, and it still stands at least until August. And I think maybe we've got a good shot at seeing it surpass. But that's one reason, the indicator. The other is trends. And this is the other reason that I think the insurance registration data is lagging the actual delivery numbers. And that is, if you look back over the course of these months and these weekly numbers, what you'll see is typically it's the end of the month when NIO has its strongest numbers. That also seems to be consistent with the idea that we're not actually seeing true delivery numbers. There are actually more deliveries going on, but because of the lagged insurance registration data, we have to wait until NIO actually publishes the monthly numbers, which in this case, we'll have to wait until September 1st for. But because we have these indicators, that's exactly why we can do a little speculation and comparison, which to me is more important. Here it is. This is the first full week of December, which again was the monthly delivery record for NIO all time, at least until this month or this year. I think this year, this month, we're going to see it come down. This is the first full week, 6,100, August 4th through August 10th. Now, if you want a comparison, I pulled that data as well on the first full week to further validate what I'm thinking with this idea that the insurance registration data is lagging. So if we go back to March of 2025, 3,000 for the first full week. April, 4,200. May actually tied with this month, 6,100 as the best ever first full week data for NIO. In June, 4,300. In July, 4,100. Folks, this is a great first full week number by NIO standards. And that's what I try to focus on is things like that to recognize trends. And now if we dig a little bit further and look back at this monthly delivery record from December and recognize it was actually this middle of the month week when NIO came in with their 6,100 number. So comparatively speaking, NIO with a 6,100 number here and a very strong carryover number from the first part of the month. I think NIO's looking really nice to challenge, if not go ahead and take and come in with a new delivery record in this month of August. But again, that's why I compile and share the data in the way that I do, so that we can actually stay focused on research and not get caught up in the rumor mills and all the hyping and that sort of thing. So let's talk about this video, because I did say I was hoping we would see a 9,000 number. Why did I even think that was possible? Well, it was actually because the data was so strong in that carryover week from the end of July and into August. And July, we didn't have enormous numbers. So I think a lot of those numbers are going to come through here from August and therefore help set up for an August delivery record. But because we had such a big number, and there are two parts to this. This is the other part. This is the video from back in April that I did, where I shared about William Lee talking about how they would be doing 9,000 on the weekly side of things soon. And again, this was back in April. So I've just kind of kept this on the thumbnail as a reminder that, okay, I'm going to leave this here until we see that. But in the meantime, it was interesting to see just how much hype really kind of snowballed with people. And maybe I didn't help that by saying, I hope we can see a 9,000 number. But I also was really surprised at such a strong number to start the month. I think in that carryover week, because I believe that was a top 3 number on the weekly side for NIO all time. And so that was very positive, and I'm very excited to see what we'll see for the rest of this month. And again, now that hopefully people are more aware and can bring awareness to others that, hey, these insurance registrations are probably lagging, almost certainly, I think, lagging the actual deliveries. So just let's pump the brakes a little bit, chill out, chillax. This is kind of an interesting breakdown. I like seeing this from Thinker Car. So I hope we'll see more of this. This is the sedans for the week. You've got the ET5 Touring from NIO and the ET5. So both sedans ranking in the top 20 just on the weekly side of things. That seems positive, especially as it's the NIO brand. So sales price a little bit higher there. And we'll see in the next couple of quarters what margins look like. But now let's talk about the SUVs and both Onvo vehicles, the L90 and the L60, both in the top 11. And that is very positive. I think what we're starting to see is the level of quality and the legitimate premium services and products that NIO puts out there are being reflected in these numbers as we're going to see them continue to go up. I mean, the L90 is still a brand new release. We don't even have much data to go on, but they're already moving right up the charts. And I think that brings more exposure to Onvo, the L60 rather. And I've got a tab pulled up I'll talk about here in just a second with respect to that, again, with the trend or the indicator on the weekly side of things. But I thought this was interesting as well. And this is another thing to keep in mind is the demand. If, and I don't know what the cadence is for NIO sending vehicles out. I don't know, what they're producing and sending out, what that time frame is and when those will be delivered. And I certainly don't expect them to be counted in the China delivery numbers that we typically are reviewing. So that is something to keep in mind as well. Here's the other, and I love this, a couple of really good shares here. And so I had to highlight them. Remember that NIO Group is the only automotive company in China that does not count test drive vehicles delivered to stores as sales. Wow, how about that? And how about the opposite of hype, right? But that's one of the reasons I love the guy running the company so much is he's actually interested in providing legitimate value and not just hyping things. This was kind of interesting too. So, and it is in line with perhaps what we'll see as a new monthly delivery record. But we'll just, look, what I do here on the channel is research and track data and nerd out. So we're going to keep doing it. This is, I think, noteworthy. And back to, again, the trend or indicators. This is the L60. And you say, well, it dropped off from the last week. Yes, but remember the last week was very strong. And I think more importantly, let's look back at the comparable week from last month. Oh, the number's actually not bad. It might even be an improvement. Now, next week, we'll get data that would align with this week. Let's see what that looks like, because I think we will see some of these trends continue over time. Historically, that's what I've seen just from, again, doing so many of these weekly videos, and that's why I do them. It's less about speculation and more about continuing to learn and have some awareness of what might be going on. Here's where things really get fascinating for me is the pre-market. I was, I don't know, checking the market around 5 a.m. Central time. And so I saw this guy. The last few days, this has been green for NIO. And so that was interesting that was red. Not a huge volume, but it didn't matter if they're taking the price down. And then we had this one was green. But look at this, all of this right here. I'm always curious when I see this, if this could be spoofing. And if you want to know what that is, drop it in the comments and I will share a couple of links because I don't want to go in depth. But one of the links is a very high-end attorney who doesn't really lose cases. Basically, the shorts always want to settle with him rather than actually have all the discovery made public. And so that they can kind of keep the trade secrets of things that they're probably doing illegally and illicitly as trade secrets. So anyway, his take on that was very interesting. And so I'll share that if you want. And then there's another article that I can share as well, if you're curious to kind of see what could be going on. And maybe I'll talk about that in a future video along with FTDs when we get that updated data. But if you look at the left-hand side, We do have big volume today for where we are relative to the last few days. You see, volume's been really low. But interestingly enough, even at this point with the stock down on the day, if we look at the recent uptrend that started back in, that was roughly a month ago, the stock price was about 370, 375. And so we're still up relative to that. So, let's just see what happens. I think things are getting more fascinating and interesting than ever. And I saw so many people hyping the numbers on the NIO side of things. I don't want to say I was sorry I did the video, because I'm glad I did the video, because now we get more talking points and hopefully we can raise awareness for people who maybe aren't really paying attention or don't realize that deliveries could actually be lagging the insurance registration data and they are not necessarily correlated. But I also just think it's important to recognize when things like, for example, if there was a shorting opportunity that was determined to maybe change what the preset algos would have otherwise done here in the last few days, partly because maybe the numbers they saw that, and I mean, let's face it, the big money that's shorting NIO knows that there are a lot of retail investors involved. And so one thing I expect is ongoing psychological warfare. This is just reality. They're looking to make as much money as they can. And if they can take from us and get into our heads and get us in our feelings and emotional and that sort of thing, then I expect them to do that. And that's also why I try to stay focused on the research side of things and recognizing even when we can't get access to real-time data, that's okay. It just means we don't know until we can look back at, let's say, the FTDs when they do come out and are updated, and that can give us more of an insight. Here's the other thing, especially I think for someone who is emotional or who gets in their feelings about things like the weekly data, I'll just direct you to this. I started the channel back in, I think it was 2020, when I first started talking about NIO. And this is my view. This is the short end of the long term. And I say it right here, once NIO, and I'm talking about the NIO brand only, has delivered 1 million NIO vehicles, I'll have a better sense of how this long-term investment is looking, including battery as a service and the energy play potential for NIO. And I'll tell you right now, it's 2025 as I'm recording this, and I'm already amazed at how much more upside there is with the energy play. And I still don't think I'll have clarity with battery as a service, even when there are 1 million NIO vehicles out there. So I almost wish I could go back and make it 2 million, but that gives you a little indicator, a little sense of my view. And because I'm so big picture and long-term and willing to give this company time, that's also why I'm not ever really going to freak out in the short term about stock price movement or that sort of thing. It's all just a research and learning opportunity for me. That's the way I view it. And that's the view and approach that I try to have here on the channel, as well as just to share a little of the research that I'm getting into, and hopefully it helps others. If nothing else, providing easily easily obtainable data, or for reference point for things like the playlist for the insurance registration data, so you can actually go back and look at what NIO has done over the course of time. But I knew this would be a little longer video. I will create chapters or timestamps just for viewer convenience, so that if you can't watch it all the way through or have to break it up in pieces, that'll be easier for you. But I think maybe people were surprised because I was like, oh, I hope we see a 9,000 number in my video yesterday. And then today I was like 6,100. No, I'm not disappointed with that. And then when I looked and actually tracked back with the data, I'm like, wow, this is the best, tied for the best we've ever seen in a first full week. And it's following a strong week that I think will help set things up for, yes, a new monthly delivery record in August. But we'll have to wait till September 1st to find out. And in the meantime, we will keep tracking the data as we get it. So thanks for sticking around to the end. If you actually made it to the end, have a great day or night whenever you see this. I'll see y'all again very soon.